This is Lee Rosenbaum, and I'm here with
Boornazian
from
Integrated Conservation Resources. I'm an architectural conservator.
And Glenn is one of the team that's going to be working on restoring the exterior of the Morgan Library and Museum. It's a project that's only going to take about a year to complete.
Yeah, the exterior about a year.
And the museum is not going to have to close. You assure me there's no dust, vibration, or anything that's going to affect the objects. But before we go outside, you were going to show me a little something over here about how well well and unusually this building was constructed.
Yeah, so the exterior Tennessee pink marble, but is really limestone geologically, was commissioned in such a way to create this extremely thin joint that comes to about a 64th of an inch.
Huh.
But to me, it's like, can you imagine a craftsperson trying to get this level of precision for every block that makes up this entire facade? And when it was initially constructed, having it look like this, as Colin was saying earlier, made the building look monolithic. Like one piece of stone was brought here and carved like a sculpture.
Right. What happened over here, by the way?
This one of the very few cracks in the building.
We happened to find a floor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is Frank Prial, who's the architect in charge of the project. And Frank was involved in the 2006 piano work and how it touched the building. So you know a little bit more about the way it looks.
We actually did
inside.
some actual replacement of pieces that had been modified over time by when changes were made in the 1920s when they added the annex. So we have some experience in exactly how it was done. So for us, it's a combination of architecture, really almost to the point of being art, and engineering. Because the whole intent, as Glenna said before, was not only to create this appearance of being carved from a solid piece of stone, but then also to prevent any water from going in, fire, any kind of temperature change because of the extraordinary collections within.
Yeah, to protect the collection. It was said that McKim came to Morgan one day and said that he wanted to build like they did in antiquity. And he explained that he wanted to build in a similar, to show the way that the Erechtheion was constructed, with these massive pieces of stone come together with very thin joints in between. And it was reported that Morgan said something like, well, how much will that cost? And McKim said about $50,000. And he said, well, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
But $50,000 back then was a couple $1 million today.
Correct.
And the contractor was extremely happy about how much more money he was going to get, except what he didn't know is that McKim's firm was going to be on site all the time, making sure that the stones that all came like this.
Yeah.
So every little chip, if there was a chip in this stone, it was like take it away and come back. So I think the poor contractor, his dreams kind of went down the tubes in a way. But
we had fun though when we did the work. We went back to the original source, the original quarry, which is in Tennessee, actually right outside of Knoxville. This material used to be very plentiful at the beginning of this century. It was used not only in very prominent and visible places, but then also in bathrooms because it was common, it was durable, and it has a remarkable range of colors.
And does it still exist?
And for
still
sculptures,
exists.
and the floor of Grand Central
The floor of Grand Central Terminal is the same, the same location.
And Frank, you were from which firm?
Beyer Blinder Belle Architects.
Okay, let's head outside and show me a little bit of what you're going to be doing out there.
For the facade and where we were most involved, there'll be a scaffolding going up. The building will be cleaned. Some of the joints will be repaired. If you look over here, you start to see some of these water spots that are showing up. Those are where we found that water sort of penetrates and then runs back out. So we'll be localized repairs in those areas too to prevent water infiltration.
And then there's that green stuff.
Right. So that's part of the cleaning, this biological removals, and there's some, as we were saying, on the sculptural pieces, there is some loss of binder strength that has resulted in some of the stone surface being lost, and the sculpture therefore losing its crispness. So there'll be some localized consolidation, a chemical treatment that brings back some binder strength but doesn't limit porosity of the facade.
But you're not replacing losses if they're being losses.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And the idea is to sort of slow down the decay process and have the building look its age, and then clean it.
And then what you can't see from here is an entirely new roof which is a flat roof. Has not been fully comprehensively replaced since the building was, as far as we know, since the building was built and completed in 1906. So we will be taking it, actually removing accretions and layers of now failing waterproofing all the way down to the original. It's a flat terracotta construction, exposing that and then building up from there. So we consider this a complete envelope restoration, and again the effort is really to do and help the building to do what it had always been intended to do, which is to protect the treasures within, keep water out, maintain temperature, and maintain the security as well.
You mentioned the scaffolding. There's something a little unusual about the scaffolding.
I mean, because the building, as we were talking about when we were inside, has this sculptural aspect to it.
It's art in itself. It's a work of art in itself.
Like a piece of art. Any little scratch on it is unacceptable. The museum sees this as part of their collection, and we really can't allow the scaffolding to touch and scrape and scratch the surface. It's been engineered to be a freestanding scaffold, even with wind load and things like that. But the part of the program is to open this up to the public at times and actually have educational tours that look at each one of the sculptures, and because there's a story behind each one, and each one was very carefully chosen by McKim and Morgan to be represented on the building.
And Colin Bailey, the director, told us that there's going to be new lighting here, so that in the evening these lions will be nicely lit instead of looking sort of
sinister.
funereal.
I think the word was sinister and menacing.
It does.
Exactly.
These I get they're Assyrian.
They are Assyrian lionesses. So they don't have the pronounced mane, that you would see on other types.
On a male
lion.
Right.
But they are carved from a solid block of Tennessee paint, the same material as the rest of the building. They were also carved by the same artist who produced Patience and Fortitude on the front of the New York City Library just a few blocks away.
I guess I should have known that. That's interesting.
Too, when you look at this, not only is it one block of stone, but the block of stone also comes out and becomes the steps as well. So when you start to look at the building carefully, you start to realize that it's not just the design, but the craftsmanship is it meets the same level of quality.
This is really at a level that you haven't seen.
Never seen before. And there are small
details. We've worked in a lot of good places.
But only very minor repair work. There is some damage that's been done over time. And
what about the cracks? They're just going to stay?
Yeah, those will be
we think they're more
they will be filled.
they're more geological. It's not a result of the object moving or being...
No, there's no threat to the artwork itself, but we will certainly do some work just to finish off those slight cracks visually.
Let's go back to the doors now.
But one of the other unique elements is this coordination and association of bronze work, of ornamental metal work, with the magnificent stonework. And you see elements of bronze work in the pendant light fixture on the door, which is actually a work of art in itself and will be removed and conserved as well.
We can go
with biblical scenes. And then behind us as well, the extraordinarily detailed bronze fencing, which will be completely restored and then waxed and repatinated. And the patination is very important because there is a coordination. There's an association.
There's a mock-up right there.
And here's a mock-up.
It's really, I was going to ask you, is it still going to look green? And the answer is no.
This is one of the mock-ups that tends to go in the direction that everyone is feeling it should. When you look at that historic photo, you do see, as Frank is starting to talk about, this balance between all the metal is sort of monochromatic and dark, and then the building is monochromatic and light. So
is that also going to be?
Yes.
What's going to happen to that?
Well, so we're working with the Fine Arts Conservator, Art Conservation Group, Leslie Gatt. For the doors are very complicated. Each one of the materials is different. There's wood, there's different alloys of bronze and casting materials.
And that will all become clear when you...
So each one of them have oxidized differently. So today the door reads completely different.
Let's go take a look.
That's what we were finished doing. So now you can see the background of the doors are wood, and there's a patination that was applied to it. It even has some body to it. But it was all part of this process of making it look homogeneous. So now these cast pieces, each one's with different alloys, have oxidized differently, and they don't have that same level of balance. So the art conservator is working very hard. We've done testing. We know what these are made up of. We know what the original patinas were made up of, and there are mock-ups being done now. So this interesting story, but isn't as interesting looking, is these panels below that make up the floor of the loggia. You see how perfect they are, and how well made this is. And this was given a lot of thought during the design.
This is made out of marble? Or?
Yeah, these are, I guess, Rosa Levanto is the red, and Verde Antique is the green, but they were chosen very, very carefully, just as all the other marbles on the interior were. And they were nervous about how they would be transported, and would they break in the process. So these metal bars were cut into the backs to support them, and so each one of these pieces of tape represents the location of one of these metal bars.
But although this was beautifully made, what's happened?
Well, yeah, the bars oxidized as metal usually does, and ended up really the conditions today are completely a result of the installation of these bars.
So what do you do with this?
Well, we're working on it.
You're thinking about it.
There's a couple of different ideas about what would take place. As conservators, we're interested in saving as much original material as possible, so we're coming up with ways of dealing with it.
I asked you before we started this if there were a lot of unusual challenges with this job, and you said that was a good question. I guess you just gave me some good answers as to why this was an unusual but also a very rewarding job. Because
extraordinarily rewarding. This is a building unlike any other in New York City. We have a great team.
The United States, if not
I would
the
agree.
world. When you start to really look at the construction details of how it was built and how they really understood that this was not just an architectural element, but a way of protecting the collection. There are many different layers of protection built into the building to protect what Morgan purchased.
I think rewarding to us is working with the Morgan Library, who appreciate this building as a work of art in and of itself. And that's how they've approached this restoration, which is unlike any project I certainly have ever worked on. And I've worked on some, and Glenn has some very historic buildings, but this is unique.
Well, thank you both, Glenn and Frank. Really a pleasure to talk to you.